Hope all is well. I'm here with a good friend and business partner, Jack.
Hello, everybody.
Kirkpatrick.
Thank you.
He is Scottish. So if you're a lady and you like Scottish men,
DMs open.
DMs are open. In this video, we're going to be talking about something quite interesting. We're going to be talking about the importance of network. And basically, in this entire video, we're going to make this probably 20, 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about everything we've experienced personally and not just speaking arbitrarily. We're not going to be talking, this is something I saw from Iman Godzi's video about how to do this. It's like, no, we are eating our own turtles. What we catch is what we eat, right? So we're reporting everything from our lives to you. We're not just talking like these wannabe Iman Godzi kids.
Exactly.
Right?
And, it's important that we share our own personal experiences. And in hopes of doing this, we hope that you also watching are able to implement any wisdom that you get from this video into your own life and see success as well.
Cool. So I want to start with a story, which is quite interesting. So actually, I'm going to start with a story about how we met. So I joined a program roughly 3 weeks ago, which was a mentorship program. This mentorship program was about $10,000, which was kind of steep for me. I was like, I've never invested, more than like, I believe 4,000 in a mentorship. So 10,000 was like kind of steep for me. And whatever, this guy, his ad comes up, I go through his funnel, I go through his page, I like what he's talking about, I like his process. So whatever, I buy his mentorship, get on the sales call, buy the mentorship. And then I get in, and then I start talking with some of the people in the group. Talk with a few people here, a few people there, network. And then I came across this guy named Jack, right? And me and him talked for a bit, and I realized that he lived like literally 5 minutes from my house, right? Like literally right around the corner from where I live, right? And what this led to is potentially us helping each other out in business. This led to us forming some sort of network that now opens you up to my network and now opens my network up to you.
Exactly. And that's really important and that's what we really want to touch on today is the importance of investing in mentorship and networks to further not only your personal life, but your professional life as well. So by gaining access to other people's networks, you also become and make yourself a higher value individual.
Exactly. So just to give a little introduction on my friend Jack here, he's generated millions, like in the 7 figures, from cold email processes. So this guy is like the cold email GOAT, right? If you are a business that works from B2C, you help businesses.
I do B2C, a little bit of B2E, but specialty is B2B.
Yeah, so he compiles these massive lists and like gets crazy results for his client, like upwards of 7 figures in terms of sales opportunities and actually results generated. He's like an appointment god. So we're going to be talking about network and a little bit of stuff. Before we jump into that, do you want to share any stories specifically that you have about any opportunities that have opened up to you from your network?
Of course. And one of them that was fantastic was obviously meeting Ashton. And that was actually a really interesting way is back a few years ago, I was getting into the SMMA space. And what that essentially led me to do was, like a lot of people going in through, watching a lot of YouTube videos, following a lot of people just on social media who are in the space that I was interested in. Professionally, my background is a pilot. And I had started out with the social media by building a small aviation community that was in the crypto Web3 NFT space. And that's called Project Planes. That essentially led me into saying, hey, if I can do this for myself and grow these pages, why can't I make a business out of this and help other people doing it as well? And that actually really stemmed my interest in the community. So I started watching people like Sandra Stage, Iman Godzi, Gary Vee was also pretty inspirational to me as well into what he does. And through that, I got more involved with the community and came across through Sandra Stage's program and joined his program, got connected with some people in there. And that led to me kind of explosively expanding my network in the scene because now all of a sudden I had direct access to all of these different types of individuals at all different levels of business. Some people making millions, some people just starting out at the time like I was, making 1,000-2,000, just focusing on getting their first client. And then, through the grapevine of investing in different programs, we eventually got connected with Ashton through investing in that, mentorship program. And it was the same situation for me. Like, I hadn't invested anything upwards of the 5 figures into a mentorship program before, but I know one thing, and this is a really favorite quote of mine, is if you trust yourself, then you should be willing to invest in yourself, because there's no risk. The only risk is you, right? Personally, I don't remember who I heard that from
little
first.
Gold nugget, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those little gold nuggets that if you trust yourself and you're willing to invest in yourself, then you're going to go and get those results. It's almost like burning the boats sometimes, and that's another thing we'll dive into a little bit more. But that's essentially the story of how I came in contact with Ashton first, and my background. And Ashton, I'd be really interested to hear about yours and what led to you joining in, getting into mentorship and into those types of communities.
Into just communities in general?
Yeah, just in mentorship communities, maybe the SMMA space, or any other stories that you might have personally about the success of mentorship.
So what I want to share is actually quite interesting. I want to share just a story. So for those of you that are watching this video, you probably have seen my channel before. And like I work in the SMMA, I specifically work with fitness coaches. But I want to share actually a pretty interesting story. So, and this is actually very applicable to anyone kind of in the space. So, and you definitely agree with this point because you're a smart individual.
Likewise.
So what happens is when you meet someone, right, that's a business opportunity, that's a client, and you work for them initially, you may think, oh, this is a waste of time, this client's not paying me that much, right? That's the worst mentality, because that client can open you up to many other experiences. I want to give you an example. So one of my first clients was this small gym out of the Aurora area, like north of Toronto. And I was working with them for a little bit. They were one of my first 10 clients or so. And was working with them for a bit. I wasn't making that much with them. I was kind of questioning the whole process. I was like, should I work with them? Should I not work with them? And then what happened is the owner knew this really high level individual, right? And what happened was I was literally working out at this gym. I was working out at LA Fitness, doing my fucking curls, just ripping curls. Mm-hmm. And then I see this guy, because I watch him on YouTube all the time. He has 600K, crazy. It's like, whoa, there's, I'm not gonna say his name, but wow, there's that guy.
Right.
Right? So I beeline it to him. I say, hey man, start asking him a few questions. I'm not gonna hit him with the, hey, can you give me your autograph? My status just goes down. Exactly. Ask him a few questions, whatever. What that led to is him being like, yeah man, let's set up a time to chat. In the middle of the gym. And then what he did is he got in contact with this other client of mine who I was doing work for at the time, that I was kind of like, they're not paying me that much, whatever. But that then led me to this deal with this person, right? Which was probably one of my larger scale deals.
Right.
Right? So let me ask you a question. Do you have an experience where the network you had opened you up to a new possibility or a new direction that you wouldn't have seen coming originally?
Yeah, and this is actually the story of how I got my first client. Was exactly kind of in that same process that you described of having a good group, good network, and being open to more possibilities. So originally I was part of a mind mentorship that was focused on, bettering yourself, specifically tailored to entrepreneurs. And through that, getting on group calls and having discussions with, high-level people in the space, I came to know a mutual friend that both me and Ashton have is a guy called Moshe. And after kind of talking more with Moshe, as he was in the same space I was at the time, he was doing SMMA and he was doing a couple thousand a month. I asked him, I said, do you have any particular mentors in the SMMA space? As I was currently focused on working my way through finishing my degree and also being involved in another mentorship program with Sandra Stage. And he said, I do. And he says, I really would recommend it. And it actually ended up me being asking, because he was doing quite well. I said, who was your mentor?
Yeah.
Right. And then he also had mentioned a guy named Neil McDevitt, which was how me and Ashton got in contact with each other. And talking and getting involved in that mentorship process eventually led to us getting on more calls together. We got to know each other a little bit better, myself and Moshe. And from that actually stemmed, he had a client at the time that he was unable to fulfill because he was changing his offer and changing his service. And what I was getting into and pivoting into at the time just happened to be that exact thing that the client needed assistance with. So that actually is what landed me my first client, was just having that network of people who otherwise, if I wouldn't have taken that chance and invested in myself and in mentorship and in a bigger professional network, that I would have never had that chance. And that would have, I wouldn't have made the income that I've now made and helped that client make the revenue that they've made, which is now, well into the six figures, is having that professional connection and a professional network just like you did. So in regards to that, is there anything that you have or have seen trend-wise with perhaps younger people nowadays wanting to invest in getting to know more people?
Any trends?
Yeah, any trends or anything that you might just kind of notice about mindset of people of our generation?
That's an interesting question. I think just in general, people have gotten more selfish, right?
100%.
Like, and kind of just like on that topic, I think I think communities as a whole have been growing, like very niche communities, like Sam Ovens with school.com.
Exactly.
Like that type of stuff. Let me ask you a question. What advice would you give for someone who, let's say, wanted to meet high-level people? Because this is my take. Networking is really good in general. Totally agree. But networking with brilliant people who are making seven figures a month, people who are really killing it, that's where the money's at. Because their network is more extensive than my network, right? I'm not making seven figures a month, right? So what advice would you give for someone who isn't making seven figures a month or six figures a month to network with people who are way above them?
I would say, honestly, the best thing you could do is invest into mentorship programs, just as similarly how we did and we've been talking about, because that will give you exposure to those people who are well above you in, perhaps personal life and in business, right? Because those are the people, they might be your mentor, right? But you might also have people in that program that are doing way bigger numbers than you, closing way more clients, and have been through the same struggles that you might not be going through, that you can make a connection with and help outside of the program. And that's also what happened with me, is that in the mentorship program that we joined, there's people who are doing 6-7 figures a year and have been through those processes and challenges that, we are currently facing, and who are able to assist with that because they have gone through the same experience. So the biggest thing I can say is take advantage of also right here. This is a key to the world. It is a key to so much potential and so many connections, because just a few years ago, we didn't have the technology to be able to instantly connect with someone halfway across the world. Yeah. And now we do. It's about leveraging that personally and professionally in order to build those connections that will make you a higher value individual.
Yeah.
And, that also goes with, women, money, delivering good value to people and clients, building up a larger network of people to contact for anything that you might need in the future. There are endless benefits to knowing more people. And this is one thing I really want to stress about getting to know a lot of people. It's important that you also just have an inner circle of people that you really can trust, close, doesn't have to be a lot of people. But having access to a lot of people to reach out to people in different types of scenarios that could be of value to you also makes you consequently a high value person, because if anyone might need something in their scenario, they might know you, who has a mutual connection to somebody. So that places importance on you because you're able to facilitate that connection. And in business, people do relationships more than they do business. So if you're able to provide quality relationships, and from those relationships become successful and generate good results, if it be in business, and form a good, healthy emotional connection with that person and build trust, then in any area that you want to get into in life, you're going to be successful.
I agree with you, but I also disagree with you.
I'm interested to hear.
Because I think in order to form relationships, you have to lead with the business side of things. People nowadays are very selfish, so you have to lead with what you can do, right? So if you're wanting to level up and network with high-level individuals, people who are making tons of money a month, 6 figures, 7 figures a month, you have to lead with value. You have to lead with, hey, this is what I can do for you. Keep doing that for them. That's going to lead to them liking you, and then lead to them forming a relationship with you. Let me give you an example. There's this client of mine, my biggest client. I reached out to him the other day. I was like, hey man, can you dig into your network? I want to talk to this guy. I knew that my client knew this guy.
Right.
He was someone who was in the same space as me. So I'm like, hey, can you give me his contact? And then my client said, well, what do you need it for? And I said, well, I wanted to just talk to him. And he said, oh, you can't, what? He was like confused. It's like, what are you offering to him? Right? This guy he's making like probably 500, 600K a month. Not my client, this person I was trying to reach out to. And it's like, they don't even realize if you try to reach out to them and just talk with them, they're trying to steal your money or steal your time, right? So I think you have to lead with the value. I can think of so many times where I've led with, hey, you're a business owner, I'm going to do this for you. That led to me getting great results for them. That led to them liking me more. That led to us then having a good relationship instead of the other way around.
Right.
I think with people on your level, like me and you were kind of on the same level, right? We're both making kind of close to around the same a month.
Right.
Right? In this sense, right, we can lead with a relationship. But if someone's way up there, they're going to be like, this kid's trying to steal my time and money.
Exactly.
Do you agree with me?
100%. And, I really do agree with you. And I think that perhaps reframing what I said is better, because in essence, I do 100% agree with your point. And I like what you said there, leading with value, and that ties back into how do you make yourself a high level individual? One of the ways is through building those connections with people who are higher value than yourself. That's the best way to do it. That'll give you the best ROI, as we like to use as a marketing term. But some people, and I want to say this to, it might not apply to you, but there are people out there who might not be super high value right now who want to make these connections. What would you say, and what would be your take on, let's say you're not a very valuable person? How do you make yourself valuable in order to then lead with value to make those high value connections?
Good point. Before I answer that, I want to just share something with you quite interesting. And you've probably met tons of people like this. So I met this guy. I was kind of friends with him. He was cool. I was being nice to him. But he would preach to me that your network is your net worth. This is what he would preach to me.
I think everyone's heard that one before.
Right? He went on rampages about network. Oh, you got a network, bro. And he would talk down on me like I'm not networking as much as he is. Right? But the thing that he got wrong is he had a ton of networks. He knew tons of people. But he provided no fucking value. Right? Exactly. So it doesn't matter how many people you know. It doesn't matter how many bullets you have. It matters if you're able to put it in a gun that actually fires the bullets.
And then aim them.
And then actually aim at a target. So what I would suggest someone to do if they want to build up some value is simply focusing on one thing. Doesn't have to be a crazy advanced thing. I think picking something like copywriting, email marketing, paid advertisement, social media, content creation, editing is a very important thing. If you know how to edit, right? If you know how to code, these are just skills that if you have these, now if you go talk to a high-level business person, because when I talked to that guy at the gym, he mentioned to me, he's like, what are you in? I'm like, oh, I'm in social media. He said, do you know how to do paid retargeting ads? I can't figure out how to do them. And I was like, dude, of course I know how to do that. He said, I want to target my own audience that's following me already. And I looked at him and was like, dude, I do that all the time. Right? Let's say I didn't have that skill. I'd be like, oh, what do I do now? Right? So
Exactly.
do you have, like, let me ask you a question now. What advice would you give to a kid who wants to network but doesn't have the skills yet? And what skills would you tell them to go and try to develop?
I would then, that's a great question, Ashton. And firstly, I want to say that I 100% agree with you is that developing skill sets and high value skills will make you a higher level individual just by that, because, you provide more value now as a person by someone connecting with you, because you can do that service or providing the skill that you help develop. So what would I say to people who are looking to go and start and develop the skills? Firstly, I'd say you're not going to get anywhere by being super introverted. Now, I'm not saying you can't be an introvert, but what I'm saying is confidence and communication
I like that, yeah.
are key, especially in today's world, because that leads to, and this is something that we use in the lead gen space, and specifically for what I do, is deliverability, right? If you think about the deliverability of a message, who do you want to listen to? You don't want to listen to, hi, my name is George and I want to talk to you. No one wants to listen to that, right? But
can you give me an example of deliverability in personal life?
Of course. That would be recently, I actually had reached out to a fitness influencer by the name of Ben. And if you've heard of Project 50 Days, that is the guy on Instagram. And I had seen what he wanted to do with perhaps starting a YouTube channel. And I reached out to him as one of my clients is actually in the space of helping people scale to 50 to 100K a month through using YouTube. And I thought, okay, right, perfect. I want to facilitate this connection. So you don't want to come across as super salesy. You don't want to come across as fanboyish, I'm talking to someone with all these followers. I'm really nervous. You want to just come across as that confident, well-communicated, well-respected individual and approach them with, like you said, leading with value. And that comes down to having the confidence to do that and also having the right communication skills and kind of knowing what to say and having purpose in directing a conversation.
Or even credibility. If you think about it, like with the gym, let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in the gym and someone comes up to you? This happens to me all the time. Someone comes up to you and they're like an old person who's out of shape. They're fat. And they say, oh, you shouldn't do this exercise like this. And you look at their body type and you say, dude, literally go eat a bag of dicks. Like fuck you, dude. I don't give a shit about your opinion because you're not living it. Why don't you take your own fucking advice? Right?
Right.
Or someone comes up to me, says the exact same piece of advice, but they're like 250 lean. They're jacked. I'm going to be like, oh, thanks, man. You're living that advice clearly. I'm going to take that because you're living it.
Exactly.
Right? So what do you think that has to do with deliverability? Do you think living it delivers the message better? Because if you are the garden that attracts the butterflies, it doesn't matter if you have flowers, because they're already attracted to the garden.
100%. And 100%. I totally agree with what you said. And that really boils down to the principle of actions speak louder than words. I can say all I want, right? I can say, all right, this is how you fly to the moon and conduct a successful lunar landing. All right, who are you? Have you been an astronaut? How do you know this? What accreditation do you have? Like, where are you from? And it's also like the same principle boils down to like just absorbing any information nowadays. You want to make sure the source you're getting it from is credible and good quality. The best way to judge quality is through the actions and results that someone has developed, because seeing is believing.
Do you know any Greek mythology?
I'm familiar with some, yeah.
Do you know who Mercury, the god Mercury, was?
Yes, Mercury.
So there's this story, pretty much, where there was a bunch of fishermen, and they were fishing for fish, but they could only catch turtles. And no fisherman wants to eat turtles.
No.
It's like gross.
Exactly.
But they were hungry. So they were like, let's just eat the turtles. So they take all the turtles, they cook all the turtles up, right? And then when they're cooking the turtles, they see the god Mercury fly over. And they say, Mercury, Mercury, come, we have food, come, right? Thinking that the god Mercury was going to turn the turtles into fish, right? So they come, sit down, Mercury, come eat the food, right? And then Mercury made them all eat their own turtles. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
So instead of preaching to others to do what you're not doing, do it yourself. Eat your own turtles. I say that all the time. Eat your own turtles.
It's a good quote.
That's where I get it from. Eat your own turtles. So it's like, when we're making this podcast, for those of you that are watching, everything that I'm talking about, and I know everything that you're talking about, is not just like, hey, we took Iman Ghazi's course. This is like, no, like, this is what happened with our clients. This is what happened last week. This is what happened last month. Do you agree with me?
100%.
Let me know. I want to hear what you think about kids. And I know they're kids because they're not, I feel like adults wouldn't do this, but kids.
Okay.
Old kids.
Old kids, okay.
Maybe like 20-year-old, 25-year-old. I'm still going to call them kids that don't eat their own turtles and copy and regurgitate Alex Hormozy or Iman Ghazi or shit like that. What do you think about that? And what do you think those kids should do?
I think that those kids should take their own advice. And I'll be honest. I'm gonna use an analogy here. When you fall a tree and chop it down, destruction makes a lot of noise. It's loud. You hear the tree fall. When you grow, whoever hears a tree grow, that's a pretty silent thing, right? So if you're growing, right, as a person, in my opinion, until you've become more experienced, it's best to stay quieter until you've built some foundations around you that you can point to and say, hey, like you said, this is where I'm from. Here's my proof of the pudding. Here's, you can talk about it. And that ties into another thing, is that, you see a lot of people later in life who go on to write books about whatever they've been through. And there's a good quote from Rumi, and he was a philosopher. He said, to write a good book, you first must become the book. And I think that to people who are simply just regurgitating information they see from other people. Now, point here, it's pretty hard to come up with brand new information. There's been thousands of years of history. I'm sure I'm not the first person to be saying what I'm saying. But I do have some foundations and have some results to stand on to speak to these. And that's what's really important, is to those adult kids or grown kids who are just regurgitating information, saying, look at me, I just did this, look at me, look at me, look at me. Instead of being all look at me, put your head to the grindstone.
Look inside of myself.
Exactly. And I'll say to that, going inside of yourself is the longest journey you will ever take on in your life. And it'll never end. But I tell you what, and this is the philosophy that I also embody, is as long as you put one foot in front of the other.
Hey guys, the camera cut out.
We're back.
We're back. What were we talking about?
We were talking about...
The path illuminates as you walk it.
Yes, and if you didn't catch the little bit before that, we were talking about saying to kind of adult kids what they should do and not do in order to kind of transition into being an adult. And one thing I definitely wanted to touch on as well is the fact of just the importance of being yourself as well. And I know people say, oh my God, be yourself. I go, who is this guy? I haven't heard this before. Right? But as I said before, and I'm not sure if the other camera caught this, is the longest journey you'll ever go on in life is into yourself. And it's about finding who you are. I truly believe that every single person put here has a unique purpose to them that only they can fulfill simply because of the fact that they are who they are. I'm not you and you're not me, but you're here to fulfill the purpose of being you. And I'm here for the purpose of fulfilling to be me, right? And whoever can help you in life to become, and I preach this all the time, is becoming your highest and best version of yourself. Those are the people that you really want to connect with. And the highest and best version of yourself is not going to be someone who regurgitates, the wisdom of other people and claim it as their own. Isn't going to be someone who goes, hey, it's me. I'm this big guy having a giant ego. The highest and best version of yourself is going to be someone who is consistently trying to improve themselves and giving more value to other people and just simply not being an asshole, because nobody likes an asshole. So that's what I'd say to those kids that think that they're growing up and they've done some stuff in life and now all of a sudden they know everything because they made a few $1,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I also think that being yourself in business is kind of a myth.
100%.
Like, this notion of being yourself. Like, I wouldn't tell a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid to be himself.
No, I wouldn't either.
I would tell that kid, hey dude, you're gonna have to put on a facade.
There is the case of fake it till you make it.
No, but not even that. Not even fake it till you make it. It's like, dude, like, no one's gonna value you if you be yourself. Right? Because you right now is not the person that's gonna get a lot of clients and make a lot of money. Right? The person that you're going to grow into, that's the person that's going to make a lot of money. So why don't you just skip this present self and just put yourself in the shoes of that person who's already made it, and you'll just get there.
Exactly. And that's not to go, take it out of context by what you mean and go too far and, act like you're the big shot and you're acting like that. And for example, you let's say you have $1,000 in the bank. Your highest and best self, going back to that, and that's the person you're referring to, is the person who has already made it, who's already there. We mean this more in of a mentality mindset, yes, in an actionable mindset, but with some caveats. For example, if you have $1,000 in the bank, don't go and buy $900 Montclair shoes because that's what your highest and best self would do, thinking that you've made $1 million.
Yeah.
You have to, this is what I like to say to that principle, and this is really important, is one foot, this one is on the ground. It always stays in the present reality. This is where you are. This is who you are. This is what you're making. This is what you can and cannot do. It's very grounded. It's very present. The other foot, I can go wherever it wants to go, right? Obviously within, acceptable reason, but it's important to have both balance in imagination and being that highest and best version of yourself, but also being very aware of where you stand in the here and the now. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. Yeah. No, staying grounded is everything. But I can also make the art, this is the thing. You can say any perspective about business. You can say, oh, one foot has to stay grounded and one can go wherever you want. But what I've noticed is there's many ways to get big. There's many ways to put on muscle. There's many ways to get strong. There's many ways up the mountain. Mm-hmm. This is just what I've noticed. It's and I've felt victim to this by looking at Imam Ghazi and being like, oh, he says to do this, so this is what you have to do to be successful. There's people who wake up at noon and work from noon till midnight and make hundreds of $1,000s a month, right? Not everyone wakes up at 6 a.m. and does a cold bath.
Right. And that's the case of what works for me might not work for you.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
finding the balance within yourself and the methods that work best for you. And like you said about, perhaps putting on a facade, that, in part I agree with that. And instead of telling a kid, be yourself, like you said, a 16-year-old being themselves is not going to be the guy who rakes in that income. What I would rather say to them is become yourself.
Yeah.
Become the highest version of yourself that you possibly can. And I think simply through that one process, you will attain more than you could ever possibly imagine.
Like when I was first starting, I remember I would get on sales calls with people. I'd make cold calls. I'd get on sales calls. They'd ask me, "Oh, how many clients do you have?" This is when I had 0 clients. Like, "Oh, I've been in the space for multiple years. I have multiple clients." That's bad. I wouldn't do that again. Like, lying is bad.
100%.
Shouldn't lie. But on the other hand, a little bit of untruth in the beginning, I wouldn't say is a bad thing. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you get on a sales call with someone, right, and you know as a fact that you're going to do a service for someone and you're going to do a good job, right, it's kind of like blindly leading the horse into the stall, in a way, right? It's like, it's literally it's the thesis of objection handling. You know what's best for them. You're going to force them into that sale, in a way.
Well,
right?
You want to have the purpose of directing the conversation to where you want it to go, right?
Yeah. So I think strategically, if you're like a 16, 17-year-old and you're like, "Oh, this business, I can't, being myself, I want to be myself." First of all, don't be yourself. That's gay. Second of all, I would just kind of, in a sense, come from the perspective that you're doing the marketplace a favor by providing value, right? And be utterly selfish. Utterly selfish.
I would say be selfish, but also know when it's your time to give, because wisdom is a circle and you will not receive anything if you do not give anything first.
But you also have to realize that if you're a 16-year-old kid, what are you going to give? You have nothing to give. So, therefore, you have to be selfish in order to be unselfish. Does that make sense? If I'm a 16-year-old fucking kid, what am I going to give?
Exactly.
It's best to
you have to go develop those skills and develop that value
it's
to
like
give.
Ayn Rand. You know Ayn Rand?
No, I haven't heard of
Atlas
that.
Shrugged, Fountainhead, those types of books. You should read Ayn Rand. Crazy stuff. But like Iman Gadzhi read Ayn Rand when he was like 16. And I remember I watched this video of him. He's like, he's like, I have to be selfish now, because if I'm selfish now, then in 10 years, in 5 years, I'm gonna be unselfish and I'll be able to take care of all these people. If I am not selfish now and I help everyone, then I'm not gonna be able to help anyone in the future.
I agree with that principle, yeah.
Right?
In that capacity, as Ashton said, be very selfish. And with one thing more than anything else, your time. Why? It's the only resource in this entire life that you cannot get more of. And that's why it's so important. And a lot of people that you'll see, even in the space that we're in and in life, they'd be, maybe in their 50s or something, or 60s, and they'll be like, "Oh, woe is me. Why is life so hard? I'm stuck in this dead-end job. I don't like it. My wife's mad at me," and all this. And you hear this from people in that age bracket, right? And you hear their struggles. That's the last thing, personally, I want to become, and I think anybody would want to become. And it's important to be selfish with your time, because if you would have really dialed in your minutes of the day, you'd be amazed how productive you can be. And if you direct that in a scalable area that you can increase to, cash flow or whatever you're passionate about, but increase your resources, increase your value, then by becoming a high value person, you're not going to be like Bob, who's 55, stuck in a dead end job, and he doesn't get any, right? You don't want to be that guy. And to do that, 100%, as Ashton said, be selfish, and be selfish with the things that are scarce.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, valuing your time is big. But I also think that there's a limit to that. Initially, if you're from the perspective of a 16, 17-year-old, I don't think I think valuing your time is good, but I think you have to trade your time for money initially.
100%.
And then there becomes a turning point where I would say you're making like, I want to say like at the 10 to 20K per month mark.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, okay, systems, hire this person, SOPs, and then I'm going to shift to now trading money to get more time.
Exactly. And that's where the real leverage is found.
Yeah.
And in regards to that, this is something I like to say, and this because it feels good for everybody, right? If you're a young person, you are a billionaire in the most precious resource. Like I said, you're a time billionaire, and a lot of people don't think that way, but you are in fact a billionaire. You have, if you boil it down to seconds, you have about 2 billion or some ridiculous number of seconds left in your lifetime, right? So it's also about a frame of mind and thinking in a certain way that'll lead you to that growth and to scaling. And like you said, it's super important. And at the beginning, when you have a lot of something and your time isn't scarce because you are young, you can trade it for whatever resource you're trading it for, or assets or income or something that you're passionate about. And then at that point, you're able, once you've acquired enough, you can go and buy back that time that you've been trading and then make more use of it. So you build leverage on your time as it gets scarcer. So I think it's super important, and I'm really glad that you touched on that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. I think it's like giving time to get more time. Right? So like if you do the time now, you're going to get more time in the future.
Right.
So just delayed gratification. But
it's either going to be hard now or hard later.
Exactly. Cool. Okay, I think that's like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah, around there. It's been a good conversation.
Good convo, yeah. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you made it to the end. You are cool.
Exactly.